Did you know that Neanderthals, often portrayed as primitive and brutish beings, were actually much more like us than we imagined? They weren't just a lost species in time. They were intelligent, creative, and their history is far more intertwined with ours than you might think. Now, what if I told you that you probably carry a little bit of them within you? Yes, that's right. Get ready to unravel the secrets of one of the most surprising stories of human evolution. The truth about Neanderthals is closer to us than we ever imagined. Who were they? Really? For a long time, Neanderthals were seen as a brutal, primitive species, just a distant line in our family tree. These cavemen, with their large heads and robust bodies, were always described as inferior to Homo sapiens, as a species that never evolved beyond the wild man stage. But what if all of that was a big myth? In recent years, scientists have completely revised this view. Thanks to incredible discoveries in archaeology and genetics, we now know that Neanderthals were much more than simple hunters and gatherers. They were complex, with an impressive intelligence that challenged preconceived ideas about what was necessary to be considered human. Recent studies have shown that Neanderthals used sophisticated tools, some of which were even more advanced than those of their Homo sapiens contemporaries. They didn't just hunt and gather, but also created art, buried their dead with rituals, and even cared for one another in ways that suggest a deep level of empathy and social organization. This behavior wasn't something expected from an inferior species. It was the kind of behavior that suggests Neanderthals weren't that different from us. And the latest discoveries in genetics are now telling us that, in fact, we Homo sapiens carry fragments of Neanderthal genetics. This makes us question, who were Neanderthals really? And how is their history connected with ours? Now that we're beginning to understand that Neanderthals weren't these monsters from the past, let's dive deeper into how they survived, in a world far more hostile than ours. And what can we learn from this? When we think of Neanderthals, the first image that comes to mind is cavemen battling the wild nature, perhaps with the harsh cold of the ice ages. And indeed, the reality was even more challenging than we could imagine. But to understand the true story of the Neanderthals, we need to go back in time and explore the world they lived in. For most of their existence, Neanderthals inhabited a planet drastically different from the one we know today. They lived in an era of extreme climates, with several ice ages that covered much of the planet in thick layers of ice and snow. Dense forests and frozen plains formed an unforgiving backdrop where the struggle for survival was constant. But how did Neanderthals manage to adapt to these severe conditions? Firstly, their bodies were designed to withstand the cold. With a robust physique, Neanderthals had a wider torso and shorter limbs, which helped them retain heat. They were perfectly adapted to hunt and survive in extremely low temperatures, using their strength to hunt large animals like mammoths and bison in organized groups. In addition, the use of tools was essential for their survival. Although many think of Neanderthals as mere hunters, they were also great experts at transforming stones and other materials into complex tools. From knives to spears, these tools not only helped with hunting, but were also used to process food and make animal skin clothing, essential for facing the harsh cold. They were also skilled at finding shelter. The caves, often associated with Neanderthals, served as natural refuges from the elements. But beyond that, they were also capable of building temporary shelters outdoors, using skins and wood to create a safer environment. But the challenges weren't just from the climate. The environment Neanderthals lived in was filled with predators and other dangers. To survive, they had to be extremely organized and work in groups, hunting together and sharing food. This shows that Neanderthals had a more sophisticated social structure than many had imagined. However, the struggle for survival was constant, and natural threats and enemies were always present. How did these challenges influence the development of Neanderthal intelligence and culture? To find out, let's investigate more about their mentality and cognitive abilities. For a long time, Neanderthal intelligence was underestimated. They were seen only as instinctive creatures, limited to hunting and survival, incapable of anything more complex. But the latest one of the greatest indicators of Neanderthal intelligence comes from the sophisticated technology of tools they developed. Studies show that they created and used a wide variety of implements to hunt, cut meat, process food, and even protect themselves from predators. But these weren't simple or rudimentary tools. Neanderthal tools were highly specialized, made with extreme precision, and designed for specific tasks, such as cutting hides or preparing food. Moreover, Neanderthals were adept at using fire with great skill. They didn't just know how to make fire, but also used it strategically, whether to warm themselves, cook food, or even ward off predators. Mastering fire is one of the skills most associated with the evolution of human intelligence, and Neanderthals mastered this technique as effectively as Homo sapiens. But Neanderthal intelligence wasn't limited to the use of tools. They were also capable of creating art and expressing themselves in ways that we once thought were unique to Homo sapiens. In several caves across Europe, paintings and engravings have been found, indicating a primitive form of art. These records suggest that Neanderthals had an aesthetic sense and a capacity for symbolic thinking, something that was believed to be unique to modern humans. The ability to organize socially also reveals how intelligent they were. Neanderthals cared for one another, evidenced by the skeletons of individuals who survived serious injuries with the help of their companions. This gives us an idea that they had a sense of community and empathy, essential cognitive skills for survival in complex social groups. Finally, one of the most fascinating findings about Neanderthals comes from language. While we still don't have definitive evidence, some discoveries suggest they probably had some form of verbal communication. The structure of their vocal apparatus and the size of the brain areas linked to language suggest that Neanderthals could communicate much more advancedly than we once thought. This new perspective on Neanderthal intelligence forces us to rethink everything we knew about human evolution. They weren't simple, primitive cavemen. They were complex, creative beings with a vast repertoire of skills. Neanderthals lived for over 300,000 years, a significant presence on the planet, but suddenly disappeared about 40,000 years ago. This abrupt disappearance has sparked a number of theories and speculations. What really led to the extinction of this highly adapted and intelligent species? One of the most discussed hypotheses is competition with Homo sapiens. Modern humans arrived in Europe and other parts of the world where Neanderthals lived, bringing with them new technologies, more efficient hunting practices, and possibly a more complex social structure. However, the idea of simple competition doesn't fully explain the disappearance of Neanderthals, as there is evidence that the two species coexisted for a long time. So, what really happened? Competition may have been an important factor, but another major culprit would be the extreme climate changes. During the last ice age, the climate became increasingly severe, and living conditions for Neanderthals grew more difficult. Food sources dwindled, and with that, competition for resources intensified. If Homo sapiens had a more flexible adaptation and greater ability to explore new environments, Neanderthals may not have had the same capacity to adapt to these rapid and unpredictable changes. However, there is an even more intriguing theory that has gained strength with recent genetic discoveries. The possibility that Neanderthals didn't disappear entirely, but were genetically absorbed by Homo sapiens. Instead of a direct and definitive confrontation, there may have been a fusion between the two species. Study after study has revealed that many of us carry traces of Neanderthal DNA, suggesting there was some interbreeding between the two groups. Homo sapiens didn't simply replace Neanderthals. There was a genetic intertwining that left a permanent mark on our evolution. Although the disappearance of the Neanderthals remains a mystery, the truth is that, over time, parts of them survived. They were not completely eradicated, but rather gradually and almost invisibly absorbed into our own genetics. Now that we know the Neanderthals didn't completely disappear, a curious question arises. Did you know that probably you carry a bit of them inside you? We're not talking about a legend or a fantastic story, but about a genetic reality that scientists have discovered in recent decades. Genetic research has revealed that modern Homo sapiens carry traces of Neanderthal DNA. This means, first, it's important to understand how this DNA survived. By analyzing the genomes of ancient Neanderthals, scientists have discovered that modern humans outside Africa carry between 1% and 2% Neanderthal DNA. This mixture occurred mainly when Homo sapiens migrated out of Africa and encountered Neanderthals in Europe and Asia over 50,000 years ago. The two species then interacted, interbred, and over time, Neanderthal DNA was passed down to subsequent generations. But the most fascinating aspect of this discovery isn't just the idea that we have Neanderthal blood, but the implications it has for our health, intelligence, and even behavior. Some studies suggest that Neanderthal DNA influences important aspects of our biology, from disease resistance to how our immune system responds to infections. For example, traces of Neanderthal DNA are linked to our ability to resist respiratory diseases and how our bodies handle autoimmune conditions. Some of these genetic variants may even be responsible for increasing our vulnerability to certain conditions, such as depression and anxiety, due to how Neanderthal DNA interacts with our modern genes. Additionally, Neanderthal DNA is also linked to aspects of human behavior, such as our ability to cope with stress. This connection between Neanderthal genetics and human psychology is a growing field of research. But one thing is certain: Neanderthals are not as distant from us as we once thought. And if you're wondering how to find out if you have Neanderthal DNA nowadays, there are accessible genetic tests that can reveal how much of your heritage comes from this ancient species. After all, who would have thought that the true history of the Neanderthals is etched into our own DNA? While genetics connect us to the Neanderthals, their impact on human culture goes far beyond DNA. Every archaeological discovery, every artifact found in caves, brings us more clues about what the Neanderthals were truly like and how their culture was complex. And surprisingly, many of these cultural elements were far ahead of their time. Neanderthals are often depicted as simple hunters and gatherers, but in reality, they had a rich cultural life. One of the most impressive examples of this culture is the cave art they left behind. Although Homo sapiens were initially considered the first to create art, Neanderthals also demonstrated remarkable artistic skills. In caves in Spain and France, rock paintings have been found dating back over 65,000 years, much earlier than previously thought. These drawings were not just representations of animals or abstract shapes. They suggest a form of symbolic and spiritual thinking that was once believed to be exclusive to modern humans. The idea that Neanderthals could create art and express complex emotions through drawings and paintings completely changes our perception of their intelligence and creativity. Furthermore, Neanderthals didn't just use tools to hunt and build shelters. They also used them to adorn themselves and mark territories. Fossils and objects found indicate that they used natural pigments and bones to create accessories, such as necklaces and ornaments. This shows that they not only survived, but also had a symbolic relationship with the world around them, something fundamental to the formation of a rich and lasting culture. And contrary to the idea that Neanderthals were solitary and uncommunicative, evidence suggests they had a complex form of social communication. Discoveries of skeletons with signs of healing indicate that they cared for each other in their communities, and this requires a level of empathy and social organization that was far more sophisticated than many once thought. The very concept of burial also strongly suggests the cultural complexity of Neanderthals. First and foremost, the Neanderthals show us the importance of adaptation. They lived during periods of drastic climate change and faced immense challenges, such as food scarcity and conflict with other human species. However, their ability to adapt, whether through their sophisticated tools or the way they organized their hunts, was crucial for their survival over such a long period. This ability to adjust to environmental changes is a fundamental lesson for us today, especially considering the global environmental and social challenges we face. Moreover, the way Neanderthals cared for each other offers a powerful lesson about the importance of community and cooperation. In times of adversity, it was the strength of collaboration and empathy that allowed them to survive as a group. The concept of mutual support, caring for the weak, and working together to achieve common goals is just as relevant today as it was thousands of years ago. Solidarity in times of crisis could be the key to overcoming our own challenges, whether on a personal, social, or global level. But perhaps the most significant lesson we can take from the Neanderthals is that diversity is one of humanity's greatest assets. The Neanderthals were not a primitive version of us. They were a unique and sophisticated branch of our evolution, with qualities and skills that, while different from ours, were essential for their survival. Today, in a globalized and interconnected world, the diversity of thoughts, cultures, and skills is what strengthens us and helps us tackle the complex problems of the modern world. Still, what we can learn from the end of the Neanderthals is that no species, not even Homo sapiens, is immune to disappearance. While we may be the dominant species now, the story of the Neanderthals reminds us of the need to respect the natural balance and understand that survival depends not only on strength, but also on the ability to adapt, collaborate, and respect differences. The story of the Neanderthals is in many ways a parallel journey to our own. They share many traits with us: intelligence, social skills, tool use, and even the ability to create art. This leads us to a central and profound question: what truly makes us human? Is it our ability to think abstractly, our emotions, or is it our culture, our ability to build complex societies and communicate ideas in sophisticated ways? If we look at the Neanderthals, we can see that they already possessed many of these characteristics. They used tools and fire, formed social bonds, cared for the wounded, and expressed themselves artistically. All of this indicates that the line between us and them is not as clear-cut as we once thought. After all, what really distinguishes us from other species? Is it just our advanced language, or something more? One of the most common answers to this question lies in the concept of symbolic thinking. For many, the ability to create and convey complex meanings through symbols, such as art, language, and even spiritual beliefs, is what separates us from other animals. The Neanderthals, it seems, were already on the path to this kind of symbolic thinking, meaning that humankind is not a clear line, but an evolutionary journey that began long ago and continues to this day. The difference, perhaps, is that over time, Homo sapiens developed these capabilities in a more complex manner. Our language became more advanced, our societies more structured, and our ability to modify the environment around us deeper. However, it is important to recognize that, in many ways, the Neanderthals already possessed the foundations of these skills. This leads us to reflect. Perhaps true humanity is not defined by one single characteristic, but rather by the sum of all these capacities that connect us to other living beings and help us shape the world around us. But there is also an important lesson to be learned when reflecting on the Neanderthals: the capacity for self-improvement. Homo sapiens, throughout our evolution, have learned to explore the best aspects of our nature, honing skills that have allowed us to prosper. The survival of the Neanderthals, although challenged by climate change and competition, is a testament to how they were also in a process of adaptation and evolution. Our own trajectory is a constant learning process about what it means to be human and how we can improve our abilities to face the challenges of the future. By studying the Neanderthals, their abilities, and the mistakes they may have made, we are, in fact, reflecting on our own future. After all, their history and ours is not linear. Instead, it is full of twists, challenges, and possibilities for adaptation. What can we learn from the Neanderthals, and how can we apply these lessons in our journey toward the future? One of the main lessons is the importance of adaptation. The world is changing rapidly, whether due to climate change, rapid technological evolution, or global social challenges. Just as the Neanderthals faced environmental and cultural challenges, with their skills, we also need to be prepared to adapt our ways of life to deal with what lies ahead. This means not only embracing innovation, but also learning to preserve what is essential for our survival, such as our core human values, including empathy, collaboration, and respect for diversity. The Neanderthals also teach us about the importance of collaboration. They survived for so long not because they were the strongest, but because they knew how to work in groups. In an increasingly interconnected world, the ability to cooperate, whether globally or within local communities, has never been more important. If Homo sapiens learn to thrive through exchange and the building of complex societies, it is crucial that we follow that path, helping each other overcome the challenges we face together. However, the greatest lesson we can take from the history of the Neanderthals is the importance of humility. They were not above everything. They were not superior beings. Their extinction, in a sense, is a reminder that, no matter how advanced we may seem, we are always subject to change. We can learn a lot from the Neanderthals' mistakes and failures, reflecting on how to maintain our relationship with the environment, nature, and other cultures in a harmonious way. After all, the survival of a species depends on its ability to adapt while preserving its essence. And while the Neanderthals are an important part of our history, the future of humanity depends on our ability to learn from the past and make the right choices for tomorrow. As technologies advance and the world becomes more unpredictable, the real question is not just how we will survive, but how we will evolve as a species. Like the Neanderthals, we need to learn to integrate our skills and humanity to ensure that in the end, we are more than just a footnote in the history of the planet. As we look at the history of the Neanderthals and reflect on all we've learned, one essential question arises: how can we apply these lessons in our everyday lives? After all, the lessons of evolution, adaptation, and collaboration are not just abstractions. They have a direct impact on the way we live our lives, face challenges, and build our future. One of the most powerful lessons the Neanderthals teach us is the importance of embracing change. In a world that is constantly transforming, whether due to emerging technologies, climate change, or even social challenges, the ability to adapt is not just an advantage, it is a necessity. Throughout their existence, the Neanderthals were forced to adjust to different environments and circumstances. While their final extinction was a complex process, their ability to live resiliently in diverse conditions offers a fundamental lesson: never stop learning and evolving. Moreover, collaboration is another lesson we can directly apply in our lives. Modern life often leads us to a frantic pace, where individualism seems to be the key to success. However, the Neanderthals thrived due to teamwork. They did not survive alone. Their strength was in collectivity, mutual care, and reciprocal help. In an increasingly interconnected world, where challenges are global, it has never been clearer that cooperation is the foundation for sustainable solutions. Collaboration doesn't have to be limited to professional realms, but can also extend to personal relationships. Empathy, care, and mutual support can be the key to creating stronger, more connected, and more resilient communities. Another important reflection comes from our connection with nature. The Neanderthals didn't just live in the natural world, they were a part of it. Today, in our urbanized and digitalized society, we often lose this deep sense of connection to the earth. Recalling that connection may help us live more balanced and sustainable lives. Practices such as mindfulness, contact with nature, and even the search for simplicity can help us rediscover our true essence and enhance our well-being. The need to preserve the environment, just as the Neanderthals cared for theirs, has never been more urgent. Finally, perhaps the most personal lesson we can derive from this story is the idea of resilience in the face of adversity. The Neanderthals were not perfect, but they managed to live for thousands of years, facing difficult conditions. Even though their end was marked by unexpected events and insurmountable challenges, their journey is a testament to the human strength of adaptation and endurance. This teaches us to never give up, to find strength in times of crisis, and to remember that each challenge can be an opportunity for learning and growth. As we come to the end of this journey through the mysteries of the Neanderthals, we cannot help but reflect on the profound and lasting legacy of this species in our own history. While many think of the Neanderthals as a lost chapter, an extinct species that didn't have much to offer humanity, the reality is quite different. They were undoubtedly one of the most fascinating branches of our evolution, and their contributions, many of which we are only beginning to understand, are a direct reflection of who we are today. The Neanderthals teach us that human evolution is not a straight line. We are not simply descendants of a single dominant species. On the contrary, we are the product of a complex tapestry of interactions between different species, cultures, and environments. They may have disappeared, but the lessons they left behind are immortal. Their ability to adapt, collaborate, create culture, and live in harmony with nature are legacies that we can integrate into our lives to ensure a more balanced and prosperous future. When we reflect on the impact of the Neanderthals on our history, one question remains: what can we learn from them for our own evolutionary journey? In an increasingly globalized world with growing challenges, their experiences offer a mirror in which we can look at ourselves and learn to adjust, care for one another, and value what truly matters. But beyond that, the Neanderthals make us question what it truly means to be human. Perhaps the real answer lies not in the differences that separate us, but in the similarities we share. The ability to love, to create, to fight for a better future. These are the qualities that define our humanity, and in many ways, the Neanderthals already possessed them at their core. Therefore, when we look at the history of the Neanderthals, we should not just see an extinct species, but an opportunity for reflection on our own existence. What can we learn from their victories and failures? How can we apply the lessons of adaptation, collaboration, and resilience in our daily lives to ensure that in the end, our own species may thrive and leave a similarly lasting legacy? And more importantly, the journey of the Neanderthals reminds us that, despite our differences, we are all interconnected. Like them, we are all in constant evolution, trying to understand our place in the world. Thus, by reflecting on the past, we can prepare a future that honors both who we are and what we can become. If you enjoyed exploring the fascinating history of the Neanderthals and want to continue learning more about human evolution, mysteries of the past, and reflections on the future, make sure to subscribe to the channel. Turn on notifications so you don't miss upcoming videos. And if you found this content interesting, share it with your friends so that more people can connect with our journey through history. See you next time.